Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty to talk about as we head into the weekend. NBA All-Star events start tonight. They'll be going on all weekend long. Talk about that a little later in the show. Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast will join us. We'll talk plenty of Browns. And that's where we start, talking Browns with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from News Radio WTAM 1100. Top 25 free agents on offense, according to CBS Sports. And we're going to take a look at a couple of them that have some significant interest for the Browns because they're wide receivers. So the number 3, Chris Godwin, formerly of the Buccaneers, has a torn ACL. Number 4, Allen Robinson of the Bears. 5 is Mike Williams, formerly of the Chargers. Number 6, Michael Gallup of the Cowboys, who also has an ACL. So, D-Man, when you look at that, it's safe to say the Browns need some help at wide receiver. Of those 4, kind of the marquee wide receivers who are likely to be on the market, Devontae Adams, I think he's going back to the Packers, so we don't even go there. Of those 4, who interests you most, or are you passing on all of them if you're the Browns?
Well, I would prefer to pass on the free agent wide receiver class. It feels to me like free agent wide receivers don't pan out more often than not. So I'd like to pass there. But if I had to eyeball one of them, I would say Mike Williams is the most preferable. I get that great players come back from bad injuries all the time, but I'd rather have somebody else worry about, being the first team to have a guy coming off of a serious injury, especially when I'm signing him to heavy money. So I would go with Mike Williams. He impressed me with the Chargers, and obviously I'm remembering his game against the Browns in the regular season this year. So he would be the guy out of the 4 of them.
A wise man. So this surprised me when we were sitting down talking about this in our meeting. This is a cautionary tale for spending big money on free agent wide receivers in any year. So since 2018, 32 unrestricted free agents have signed for $8 million or more in contract value per year. Only two of them, so that's 1 in 16, have reached 1,000+ yards receiving and had greater than, or none of them rather, have had greater than 6 touchdowns. So the average season for these 8 million+ free agent wide receivers, 41 receptions, 503 yards, and 3 touchdowns. At Cleveland TA's thing, go cheap, trade, or draft for your wide receivers. And here is the list. And you look at the names and you look at the ages, and the production, again, has not been what you would want from free agent wide receivers. Galladay, Davis, Samuels, Aguilar, T.Y. Hilton, Cobb, Emmanuel Sanders, Robbie Anderson. The list goes on and on and on. I was surprised. Again, you look at that, and those are the dollar figures on the column. Those are the total value of the contract and the per year. And none of them have really worked out the way the signing team would think they would. None of them have performed the way you want a number 1 to. So I'm one of the guys that has said they need production and they need it right away, but free agent wide receivers have not worked out. Does that surprise you at how much the free agent wide receiver classes have struggled the past several years?
A little bit. I mean, I had a suspicion that wide receivers, the free agent class of wide receivers year over year hasn't been great, but I didn't know it was that pronounced. And, the saying about the good quarterbacks is, if a team has a good quarterback, it will most likely keep that good quarterback. That's why you don't typically see good quarterbacks on the free agent market. I guess you could say the same about wide receivers. If you have a really good wide receiver, you're going to find a way to keep him. And, in the Browns calculus, too, as we know, Dave, and we'll get into this, this year is affected, no doubt, by the fact that the top end of the receiver class in this year's draft is really good. So I would think the Browns would be leaning toward the draft for their wideout.
Yeah, again, the surprising thing is just none of them have really hit it. The other thing to keep in mind with wide receivers, each offensive system varies, and that really affects how any wide receiver performs in a given offense. More so than running back, more so than lineman. Receiver varies from offense to offense.
You're right, Dave. And one more thing on top of that. It's very difficult to have two alpha dog wide receivers on a team, okay? Because there's only so many balls that can be thrown in the course of a game. There's only so many touches that even the great receivers get. So when it's difficult to have two stud receivers, two seemingly number one guys, you could see why wide receivers in a free agent class more often than not would not live up to the hype or the money.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, so we're going to take a look at a couple of wide receivers, according to Bleacher Report, whose value kind of tanked a little bit. Their value is down because of last year. One of them is the aforementioned Allen Robinson, and you see they project he will sign a deal worth around $16 million annually, which will still make him one of the highest valued wide receivers. He has not played with great wide receivers throughout his career. That is a fair assessment of who he's had. He's had Trubisky, he's had Foles, he had Justin Fields for a little bit, but Allen Robinson has not had a great quarterback to play with. And Matt Nagy, we've seen what he's done with offenses. And then the other one is Will Fuller. And Fuller missed the first game of the season with a PED suspension. Then he broke his finger, personal issues. So Fuller's a guy that might be intriguing. Again, I think the Browns need probably 3 wide receivers. I'm guessing Schwartz will be back. I'm guessing DPJ will be back. I don't know that the Browns and Jarvis will be able to come to an agreement. I think Jarvis will probably want the full value of his contract and won't want to renegotiate. I could certainly understand that, where he's at in his career.
Yeah, the Browns have to replace Beckham, obviously, and I think they're going to have to replace Jarvis Landry because that cap hit is just too much, given his lack of production or his diminished production. He would say, if he's fully healthy and if he's got a quarterback who's fully healthy, he can back to his old Jarvis ways. Therefore, he would be worthy of 15 to 16 million. But I respectfully disagree. So I think they need a 1 and they need a 2, and then the 3 could potentially be a Donovan Peoples-Jones. And the way I see it, Dave, it sets up for the Browns to grab the best available wide receiver at 13, and then the number 2 in the room would be a wide receiver you could get off of free agency who you could maybe get at a lower price after the other teams overpay for the first batch.
Yeah, and again, I can't argue with that line of thinking either. The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll dive into some of the names that are available in the draft. Will the Browns go wide receiver at 13? We'll see. Maybe they'll go edge. Sports4CLE will continue. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns. Combine around the corner, then it'll be the beginning of the league year and then the draft. So it is mock draft season. Let's take a look. Josh Edwards, mock draft from CBS Sports. He has the Browns going wide receiver Treylon Burks. You see the size, a big blocker as well, which would play into the Browns thing and is a fit schematically because he can line up all over the place. D-Man, Treylon Burks, a name we hear linked to the Browns. What are your thoughts? Are you convinced they go wide receiver? And if they do, what are your thoughts on Burks?
Yeah, I mean, I am virtually convinced they go wide receiver. I mean, the only other option, as I see it, would be the edge. And, you know, if they know they're going to lose Jadeveon Clowney, or if they've lost him by then there'd be an opening at edge. But I just think there's enough talent at the top of that wide receiver group that if you're the Browns, you should come out of there with one of those studs. And Burks is one of those studs. We, of course, know about the dynamic duo from Ohio State, Wilson and Olave. You've also got Jameson Williams in there and Drake London. So I would look at that group and say, I want to come out of this draft with one of those players. Now, Jameson Williams, I just got done saying, I want another team to handle a guy coming off a major injury. Williams, of course, tore up his knee in the national final game, the championship game of the CFP against Georgia for Alabama. But he still has to be considered in my mind because he's so explosive and he's young. And the Browns, here's the other thing too, Dave. The Browns can't pay everybody. We know that. They're going to need to get studs on rookie deals. They're going to have to continue to get studs on rookie deals. And this is a way to do it because they have, you know, a couple of bills coming due soon, one of whom plays cornerback. So if you can get a really good player at a relatively inexpensive price for several years while you have to pay other people, it would be in your best interest to do so. That's why another reason why I think they would lean toward wide receiver in the draft. Okay,
so let's take a look. Another mock draft, this one from Yahoo Sports. Again, this one done today. Eric Edholm has the Browns going edge. Jermaine Johnson, and here's the thing. There's a debate. Analytics-driven, taking a wide receiver. Also need for pass rush help along Myles Garrett. Johnson's the guy from Florida State who he dominated at the Senior Bowl, and that's the reason he's gone from a fringe number one to middle of the first round kind of number one. If they decide that's the way to go, I can't argue with it. But, man, you better get somebody that threatens the defense. That's all I have to say about, you know, if you take an edge rusher.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, when I did a semi-draft preview last night for WTAM 1100, I had on the guy that I looked to for this knowledge, my friend Artie in Rocky River, and the first name he mentioned as an edge rusher candidate was Johnson. And for the reasons you talked about, my friend Artie's a big Senior Bowl guy. He really dives into all that stuff, and he said that Johnson was terrific. So, you know, okay, fine. He's really good, but to me, again, the wide receiver is such a pressing need on this team that I keep leaning in that direction.
All right, we're going to take a look at a couple scouting reports from Dane Brugler from The Athletic, actually a local guy, one of the best as far as scouting reports and mock drafts. Here's what Brugler has thumbnailed out for Jermaine Johnson. Went to Mobile's top defender on the roster, left the same way, dominating throughout the week. Georgia transfer, bet on himself, became alpha of the Seminoles defensive line. And you see leading the ACC tackles for loss, sacks. He projects as an every down NFL starter. And you see the 6'4", 259, prototypical kind of guy, played against really good competition. So you get why he flew up. Let's take a look at what Brugler has written about Treylon Burks. We're going to go into some wide receivers here. Vision and acceleration, skills to turn quick hitters into big plays, breaking tackles with his balanced body strength, and competitive toughness. He led the SEC with 22 plays of 20-plus yards. Also tracks it downfield. Separation skills mitigated by undeveloped rhythm as a route runner. Long as he stays healthy, Burks has the skills to grow into the NFL team's #1 receiver, and they compare him to Deebo Samuel. A couple of things are concerning there, D-Man. When they talk about the lack of separation, undeveloped rhythm, that's concerning because you want guys that have bursts to separate. That bursts in the rhythm is how you get separation. And you better get separation in the NFL here.
Yeah, but, first of all, we love Dane Brugler. He is awesome when it comes to draft analysis. His draft Bible every year is must read. But, from what I read there with Dane, it's like you can get the separation out of him primarily because he's raw. It's not in certain areas. It's not because he doesn't have the speed or the quicks, to get away from a defender. It's that he needs to refine his route running. That's how I see it. So that to me is not a red flag or even a yellow flag when it comes to Burks. If he's properly coached, you can get this talent out of him. And I also love anytime you mention the name Deebo Samuel, even when you say linebacker-sized version or poor man's version or whatever you want to say, you compare him to Deebo Samuel in any way, shape, or form, sign me up.
Yeah, I'm with you. The more I hear about Treylon Burks, the more I like. The separation thing concerned me. I saw that in a couple things, and then when I read it with Dane, it also kind of popped. Let's take a look at what Dane has for Garrett Wilson. Again, OSU guy. A lot of Browns fans familiar with him. Ability to get open before and after the catch, type of receiver that makes playbook come alive. Despite average size, unbelievable adjustments on the football. With his slender frame, elite body control, catch point, Wilson reminds me of C.D. Lamb. Again, those are all great things. And again, Brugler, love his scouting. He's usually really, really good with that. And a guy that makes playbook come alive, sign up the Browns for 2 or 3 of those at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Wilson first wide receiver off the board. And if he is, he most likely is gone before 13. Because, what the NFL evaluators look at is, this guy just makes plays. It's open. He, as Dane Brugler said, he adjusts to the ball. He's a guy who figures out a way to make catches. It doesn't seem like traffic bothers him. And he comes from, an incredible program at Ohio State. And I think he checks so many boxes that it's very possible he is the first wide receiver taken.
All right, we're going to take a look at 2 more wide receivers really quickly. So Jameson Williams, you mentioned coming off the ACL tear. If not for his recent ACL tear, Williams would be about 10 spots higher. He's at 22, so he'd be knocking on the top 10 in the draft. Track family, elite speed, route runners, and you see a lot of things that you want. Tracks the ball well, downfield, makes easy adjustments on the ball. In a downfield passing offense in the NFL, has a chance to be special as long as his knee makes full recovery. And then the other guy, Drake London from USC. Ultimate respect for a wide receiver is when everybody knows the ball is going to and defenses can't stop him. That sums up London's junior season. Basketball background, high point ability, and you see contact through his size, 6'5", 212, also coming off an injury. the ideal thing, D-Man, would be if one of those guys slips and the Browns could pull what they did last year with JOK. You trade up in the second round and you get 2 of those. Then you're pretty well set. That's asking a lot. But you got 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball like that last year.
Yeah, my preference, of course, I've got an Ohio State bias, but Garrett Wilson, even if I have an Ohio State bias, I'm not going to say that every Ohio State player has a chance to be great, but I truly believe Garrett Wilson has a chance to be a great player in the NFL. Second for me would be Drake London because of that size and the ball skills. Williams, I'm telling you what, man, and you saw it, David. This guy was head and shoulders the best receiver in the game for a lot of the college football season. He was awesome. I mean, he got open easily on people, and you won't convince me that Alabama wasn't going to beat Georgia in that national championship game if Jamison Wilson did not tear up his knee early. If he plays that entire game, I'm almost positive Alabama would have won, but they didn't win. Georgia won. Give them the credit. You got a situation where I don't know that the Browns, at this stage of their development, where they pretty much better win next year. I don't know that they can wait even a second on a guy coming back from a knee problem or a knee injury. So I would think even if Williams is available, they'll pass on him.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll flip sides of the ball, talk a little Browns defense, and look ahead as to what Andrew Berry might try to get done this offseason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. Let's take a look at some PFF, Pro Football Focus, projected contracts for free agents on the defensive side of the ball. So Jadeveon Clowney, they say 1 year, $15 million. That's kind of interesting. He's the 3rd ranked free agent on the defensive side of the ball. Also an edge rusher, a little further down the list, but not that far. A guy that people will remember here in Cleveland, Emmanuel Ogbah. And they say 3 years, $15.5 million, the 5th ranked defensive free agent. So, D-Man, when you look at that, I thought Clowney performed really well. 1 year, $15 million, I really don't have an issue with that. I might try to get 2 years at, $26 million or something like that. If the Browns decide to go younger, Ogbah could be an option for him. Keeping in mind that, Andrew Berry was part of the front office before that had selected Ogbah in the draft.
Yeah, that it's very interesting that Emmanuel Ogbah resurfaced. I'd forgotten about him a little bit, but good for him that he's in the mix. To make some coin. I think they will make every effort to retain Jadeveon Clowney. I think they were pleased with what he gave them on the field, and I would submit off the field. I mean, you didn't hear anything negative about Jadeveon Clowney in the Browns facilities, both at the practice field and, of course, at First Energy. So I think they'll try their best. The question is, did Jadeveon Clowney do enough this year in that 1 year kind of make good situation to price himself out of the Browns' plans and, because all it takes is one team had to be enamored of Clowney and say, all right, this is the guy that we thought was coming into the league a while ago, or this guy has rediscovered his pass rushing skills, so let's back up the truck on him. My concern is that he has impressed at least one team outside of Cleveland. And therefore, I would, I'm guessing that the odds of getting Jadeveon Clowney back are less than 50-50.
Yeah, I could see somebody making him a multi-year offer at, 16, 17, 18 million. And that's probably out of the Browns' price range, but I'm with you. That would not surprise me. Edge rushers tend to get paid. This is another one that's really interesting. So this is from Smart Football. Highest graded cornerbacks in the NFL in single coverage. Jalen Ramsey, Super Bowl champions. J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. These are PFF grades then. Then Denzel Ward at 3 and Greg Newsome at 5. So the Browns, 2 of the top 5 corners graded out in single coverage. And you had aforementioned the Browns will have a bill coming due for Denzel Ward that I would imagine, I'd be surprised if they don't sign him to an extension pretty quickly. But that just speaks in a passing league. 2 corners that grade out that highly in single coverage gives your defense a lot of options.
Yeah, Dave, and mega props to Denzel Ward. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do in 2021. He stayed on the field for the most part. I think he played 15 out of a possible 17 games, and he was terrific while he played. He made himself some serious coin. And if the Browns want to be taken seriously as an AFC North contender, they need to pay Denzel Ward. They can't allow him to walk out the door. So, this was a year, 2021, where Ward, we knew he had the skills. The question is, did he have the durability? Did he have the ability to stay on the field? And he did that this year. And as a result, he's going to get paid, and it should be by the Browns.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I was the same way. We questioned his durability. He played well, and the Browns should build around him, and I think they will build around him. That's kind of been Andrew Berry's MO. All right, as we get ready for the Combine, last couple of years, I thought Andrew Berry has done a great job as far as kind of identifying what the team needs to do, improve, and then going and doing it. When you look at this year, what's your checklist and what's your confidence level that Andrew Berry gets the guys to improve the necessary amount for the Browns?
Well, it's a high degree of confidence in Berry, but I mean, I'm still smarting from the fact that the Browns went 8-9 in 2021, and that's a season that is on Andrew Berry as general manager. So, and I know there were a lot of circumstances that were out of Berry's control as to why that record was what it was, but the fact is that the Browns in 2021 weren't very good. I'd like to see Berry do more at the back end of the draft, get more depth for Cleveland. But, of course, the priority is what are you going to do at 13? And would you move up, try to move up a couple spots, within reason, of course, to get the guy you have identified. Because I'm thinking they're going to look at that wide receiver group. They're going to go, get the measurables and get all the speeds and everything they can. And they're going to wind up saying, this is our guy. And then the question is, if it gets around 10, are they going to say, all right, we got to make a move because we have to get our guy coming out of that first round. But so far, Andrew Berry has shown that he knows what he's doing. And, I trust the coaching staff underneath him, although, again, I'd like that coaching staff to be very open to, expanding the passing attack, among other things. Yeah,
I would agree with you. The passing game needs to improve. But I think Andrew Berry has earned the trust, so it's pretty obvious they need wide receivers, they need some edge rushers, and they need defensive tackles. All right, the D-Man and I getting ready to turn our attention to the All-Star Game and the Cavs. We're talking basketball when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
All-Star Weekend in full swing here in Cleveland. All-Star Game is Sunday. There are a bunch of events, Celebrity Game, Rising Star Game leading up to it. Myles Garrett was a guest on the set of the NBA on TNT crew, who is also in town for the weekend.
Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns joining us.
Thank you. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
Hey.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
Man, our director. That's what you should have said. That's what got him going.
You know what's funny about that? When you said, here we go, Brownies, Chuck started going, where the Brownies at? Where the Brownies at?
And D-Man, I'm looking forward to the Celebrity Game simply to see who gets dunked on by Myles Garrett, because you know somebody will get dunked on. And that is a guy I would be running away from in a Celebrity Game. We've played in the softball and those kind of things. I want no part of that.
Well, and Dave Bacon, you know how Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski are going to watch that Celebrity Game with their fingers and toes and anything else crossed, because they're going to be like, oh, dear. Myles going up for we remember Myles during the regular season with his dunk and, you know, the question of whether he's allowed to play basketball in his contract. And I mean, for me, just get out of that game healthy, Myles. I mean, enjoy the heck out of it, but please don't get injured on one of your rim-wrecking alley-oop dunks.
Yeah, I'm with you. But you know what? Let him live. He can't put him in bubble wrap. You know what I mean? Just, it's not doing anything silly. But I get it. I get it. All right, a couple of the rising stars talked today. Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley will both be part of that Rising Stars game. Okoro talked about the Cavs and their surprisingly quick start this year.
I mean, we just got a whole group of new young guys, and we're just hungry. You know, we have that grit, that toughness, and we're ready just to show the league that we're one of those teams. Yeah, I mean, we take pride in that. I mean, we don't think of it as, you know, trying to be a team that doesn't have LeBron on it. We're just thinking of it as our young group right now and just trying to win games. NBA is a long season, so there's games where you just sometimes are not in it, don't have as much energy, but like this year, we've shown that we have energy every single game.
And D-Man, when you look at them, there are so many young guys that are going through the intensity and are getting ready for what will be the intensity of a playoff chase for the first time. Give them some time to adjust to that.
Yeah, I mean, the Cavs, along with Memphis, the feel-good stories of the NBA this season. I mean, 35-23. At the break, sitting fourth in the Eastern Conference, in the very tightly packed Eastern Conference, at least the top 5 or 6 teams. If you want to avoid the play-in, it's a big old pig pile that you're going to have to fight through. And, yeah, I mean, the Cavs are way ahead of schedule, at least where most of us had them this year. I mean, all I was praying for with the Cavs this year was that they would stop losing. All right. And I mean, a 500 record would have been great to me. And instead, they're 35-23. And this is really not a start anymore because they're 58 games in. They only have 24 left. And, you know, that's good for everybody, especially the veteran teams. The Cavs aren't a veteran team, but, you know, the veteran teams that now can see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the regular season goes. And you would expect those teams to come out smoking the remainder of the way. Whereas the Cavs, being younger and not having this experience, they're going to be challenged to match the intensity level, certainly of the Eastern Conference contenders down the stretch. But I think they'll be able to do it because Coach J.B. Bickerstaff will impress upon them that they've done too much work to this point to have it unravel. So maintain the intensity, get back to being good defensively, really good defensively, and recognize that you only have 24 games left.
Yeah, and the other thing is when this team has been challenged, when they've been presented a hurdle, they haven't backed away from it. That's been the most impressive thing from this team. It's they have been able to answer challenges when put in front of them. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's take a look. NBA power rankings and best comparisons. So top of the NBA rankings is Evan Mobley of our Cleveland Cavaliers. Has been there pretty much ahead of time. Pre-draft comparisons were to Chris Bosh and Anthony Davis. Might have seemed lofty. Now it's not out of the question that Mobley is having a Davis-like career, and you sign up for that all the time. D-Man, and I've watched Mobley quite a bit. He always, 98% of the time, seems to make the right basketball play. And this is a guy that only played 1 year of college. Young, rookie. He's going to get bigger. He's going to fill out. He's going to get stronger. He's agile, and he's got a lot of skill. There's just so much to like about Evan Mobley.
Yeah, our buddy Chris Fedor, cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer, covers the Cavs, the NBA. He called it. He told me, and I'm pretty sure he told you, Dave, at some point before the draft that Evan Mobley's the guy that the Cavaliers want to come out of this with. And Kate Cunningham was basically unanimous number one overall. The key was what would Houston do at 2, and the Cavs wanted Houston to take Jalen Green. Not that they disliked Jalen Green, but they saw Evan Mobley as the best fit for them, both talent and schematic-wise and scheme-wise, and what they were trying to do. And so, Houston, by taking Green, opened the door for the Cavs to take Mobley, and he's done nothing but impress. There have been lulls here and there within games, but invariably Evan Mobley comes back by the end of the game and has a respectable box score. But here's the thing about Evan Mobley. Even if he doesn't score a lot, even if he looks like he's struggling offensively, just by him being on the court, he's contributing because his defense is so good already. And the size, the length, the athleticism, the quicks, when you team him up with Jared Allen, that is a legitimate Tower City defensive stance or defensive posture that the Cavs throw at people. So even when Mobley isn't scoring, he's still contributing.
All right, before I let you go, nobody expected the Cavs to be in this position. We've talked about it. What makes this a really successful season in your mind?
Well, they would need to finish what they started this season because they've done it. They're a surprise, yes, but now that you're 58 games in and you're 35-23, you need to finish what you started. You can't collapse, and I don't think you will. Getting into the playoffs is an incredible accomplishment when you consider, it's certainly getting into the top 6 to avoid the play-in. That would be an unbelievable accomplishment by the Cavaliers, given that they had struggled so mightily the previous 3 seasons post LeBron 2.0, including last season's 22 and 50. At this point from now till the end, what they need to do is get into the playoffs, preferably top 6. And after that, anything is house money. And, of course, we recognize that next season then the expectations change.
Yeah, I would agree. If they win a playoff series, hugely successful. And the reason I say that, I want them to experience what it's like to win a series because that's just going to drive these guys to want to do that again and again. All right, D-Man, you're on the radio after Cleveland State coverage, News Radio WTAM 1100 tonight, correct?
Yes, News Radio WTAM 1100, 106.9 FM. after Cleveland State and the Cleveland State postgame show, yes.
All right, listen to him. D-Man, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, Dennis Manoloff, again, you can listen to him after Cleveland State coverage on News Radio WTAM 1100 tonight. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we go back to talking Browns. Brad Ward from Browns Wire and All Eyes on Cleveland podcast will join us. We're talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We turn our attention back to the Browns. Let's take a look at projected cap space and team needs from CBSSports.com. So the Browns have a fair amount of cap space at $25 million. Now the needs, edge rusher, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and you see some of the information there. Need to figure out Baker Mayfield situation, wide receiver. Needs to be upgraded. They don't have a number one wide receiver, and that's paramount. With that, let's welcome in Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com, as well as All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. So, Brad, when you look at that, I agree. Wide receiver, edge, defensive tackle, probably in that order. What are your thoughts as far as lining up that way and the needs that the Browns need to address this offseason?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I totally, I would agree with that order as well. I think that you're going to see them attempt to free up some more space. I think, there's some pretty obvious cut candidates here. I think that Case Keenum is probably not long for the roster. That'll free up some money. I personally think, and I know not everybody feels this way, but I feel like they like Nick Harris, and that J.C. Treader probably is not back next year, in my opinion. I think they think Harris is ready. That would give him 2 years to play on his rookie contract. And this kind of seems like the right time that good organizations make that move with a guy that's over 30 to their successor. Jarvis Landry is another story. Certainly that one, that cut candidate, that would save up about $8 million, or actually more than that, about $16 million for Jarvis is what he's due to make. I think they should attempt to restructure with him, Dave, but I don't know if they'll find a meeting ground, and I don't know where they stand behind the scenes. Certainly there's some fracture there, I think, between the organization and him. He hasn't spoke with the Browns or done an official Browns interview since his buddy left town.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you think it's a slam dunk that it's a wide receiver at 13, or do you think they could go another way?
I kind of think it is a slam dunk. I think that it would be unlike Barry and not very smart to spend and try to get a number one wide receiver in free agency. Those kind of, payouts and gambles for a number one in free agency never seem to really work out, Dave, in my opinion. So I think you get your number one guy in an attempt to remake this wide receiver room in the draft. And I think your best place to do that is 13. You should have a number of options there, including a guy I liked a lot in Drake London, so and I just think that will set you up to get a supplementary piece in free agency that maybe either fills Landry's spot or another spot. Obviously, I count Donovan Peoples-Jones as a big part of this room too.
Yeah, earlier in the show we took a look at over the past 4 or 5 years, big-time wide receivers, number one free agent type wide receivers have not worked out historically at all. So that's interesting. With that in mind, let's take a look at this from Pro Football Focus. They cluster the top 2022 NFL draft prospects together. So when you look at it, it's kind of interesting. So the route cluster, you got a couple of X receivers. You look at yard after the catch. Yak is yard after the catch threats. So people who you get the ball in their hands and they're really good. You've mentioned Drake London, and I certainly see what that is. The other one that's really intriguing is Treylon Burks. Take me through your thoughts just on Burks. Let's do Burks, London, and Wilson. We'll do those three. What you like about them and maybe some of the concerns with those.
Yeah, I really like all of them, to be honest with you. And I even like Jameson Williams a lot, too. It's just the injury question marks there, right? I think if there was no injury there, I think that he would be the guy, in my opinion. But I like all three guys a lot. They each kind of bring a different, strength to what you're trying to do. But I think when you really are taking this receiver at 13, the reason I lean towards London, in my opinion, Dave, a little bit is just, I think, bigger wide receiver that can stretch the field as more of a prototypical number one than the other guys, in my opinion, who I think would fill out a wide receiver room fine. And I don't think you have to necessarily pigeonhole yourself in that big wide receiver that's going to stretch the field and go up and catch jump balls. But I think in the AFC North, that kind of is what Browns need to add as a number one. And then I think you can fill kind of a gadget guy, as you kind of mentioned with the other one, and with the other guys, a gadget guy or a number two or a slot guy that maybe works in the intermediate or is more a yak guy from free agency. Those guys are easier to find, in my opinion, in that role. But I think the big prototypical number one is kind of where I tend to lean. Doesn't mean that's the way the Browns will feel or how Andrew Berry will feel, but that's kind of how I feel.
Fair enough. All right. Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. And I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about the passing game, quarterback play, and where it needs to go for the Browns to get where they want to go. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
The son of a freed slave, Clevelander Garrett Morgan's contributions to the 20th century include inventions such as the automated traffic signal and the gas mask. On July 25, 1916, Morgan dons his patented breathing device to save the lives of 2 workers trapped under Lake Erie in an explosion at the city water filtration plant. A few years later, Morgan's gas mask becomes the standard military issue, protecting the lives of U.S. troops fighting over there.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com and All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. So, Brad, when you looked at the playoff football, and it was great playoffs, one thing that jumped out is, man, the Browns need to drastically improve their passing game. And I think it starts probably with the quarterback play.
Yeah, there's no question that they need to get better quarterback play from no matter who plays the position next year. And, Dave, I think that we'll hear a lot of rumors, and the trendy thing right now is to, the copycat league stuff where you're looking at what the Rams did You're looking at what, how well Burrow played in the playoffs, and all the other quarterbacks, obviously, that took their teams to the playoffs. But I think what will happen, despite all the rumors that we hear, I think we're going to end up with Baker Mayfield back here. And I think you just try to put what you can around him the best as possible. Just because of the price point that he's at, I just don't know how realistic it is to get an upgrade. And the guys that they're mentioning, are they that big of an upgrade that it's worth it? You hear Andrew Berry talk a lot about sustained success. I think we're kind of in a little bit of an overreaction period here. I just think that they're going to want to take a look at a healthy Baker at that price point. I think that they'll come in with maybe a high upside backup in case things go really poorly. But I think we'll hear a lot of rumors and a lot of rumblings, but it's my feeling in the end that we get Baker back for one more year. I know that's not real popular opinion, but I think that's probably what happens.
No, I completely understand if that's the way they go. And again, I don't think it was all Baker Mayfield. I think some of it was Baker Mayfield. Some of it was that Baker Mayfield was hurt. I think they need to upgrade the receiving core. And I think the scheme needs I don't know if it's a complete overhaul, but it needs to be tweaked. There wasn't a way to threaten defenses through the passing game. And a lot of that is, you need that wide receiver. And some of it is you need to come up with a better scheme.
Yeah, no question. And you can take kind of, and I've mentioned this a couple times on my show and other shows, but you look at Odell Beckham Jr., right? And so much of what the Browns do in their passing game oftentimes relies on timing. And it was like they could never get it right with Odell, right? But what they did in Los Angeles is they just made it simple for him, right? And even if they were doing exotic things around him, for him, he ran the routes that he's run 1,000 times with any quarterback, right? He ran 9 routes, out routes, in routes, drags, whatever they needed to do. And oftentimes they're the kind of routes where Stafford could look or your quarterback could look and see him coming out of a break, where you go back and watch Browns film and everything was so much dependent upon timing. And sometimes that became very problematic with him. It was really just a small adjustment where your quarterback can see him coming out of a break, see him getting open, see a guy throw the ball to him. Even if you're doing all kinds of different stuff around him, you take a talent like that and make it easy for your quarterback and him. And I think the Browns kind of mucked that up a little bit.
Yeah, and again, let's see if they can adjust to that because you're going to want to make sure that you have an offense that wide receivers feel they can be successful in.
And that'll be a problem, I think, back to that free agency topic that we had, that's going to be a deterrent, right? Guys are going to look at the numbers that Jarvis Landry put up, the problems that Odell Beckham had. And you can even go back. It's a reoccurring thing. You can even go back to like Austin Hooper, right? Like here's a guy that put up huge numbers elsewhere in Atlanta and then came here and has not put up those kind of numbers. And people will point to that as a reason maybe not to come to Cleveland. Even if the Browns would behoove themselves to even get some buzz out there, like, hey, even if it was just a leak or whatever, the Browns are looking to do this and this with their scheme pass-wise, even though it just makes kind of, free agency targets think twice about that, hey, man, they're going to revamp this thing and it'll look different than it was before.
Agree wholeheartedly. Brad, appreciate the time. Brad Ward, BrownsWire.com, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Thanks very much. Appreciate the time, Brad.
Of course, Dave. It was awesome. Thanks.
All right. Make sure you read them. BrownsWire.com. You can also listen to them. All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. That is Brad Ward. Time for us to go to our partners in education. Every week, we go across the state and recognize role model students from all over Ohio. This week we head to Aurora High School and we meet Dylan Fishback, a guy who's getting it done in the classroom on the wrestling mat. It is Dylan Fishback, this week's Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Shining Star. Winning a state championship is always difficult, but even more so in the physically and mentally demanding sport of wrestling. Last year, as a junior, Aurora's Dylan Fishback earned the state title at 195 with a dominating performance in the championship match.
My freshman year, I lost in the state finals in overtime. Then sophomore year, the state tournament got canceled the day we were leaving. And so junior year was just kind of like, it's time, like, it's been a build-up. So it was, I guess, it was more relieving to finally get the state title, especially after getting canceled sophomore year.
It's safe to say the journey Dylan has taken to being a state champion has motivated him. He's one of the favorites to win states again at 195, but takes nothing for granted.
Definitely have a target on my back, I guess, but I'm still going to do what I do regardless of other people.
Do you embrace that? Is that you?
Yeah,
Some
I mean,
people like that.
I mean, I don't really let too many things affect me that like that, but it's definitely cool, but I always got to be prepared to wrestle whoever.
His work ethic, I mean, the kid, nobody outworks him. There's nobody in Ohio I know that's outworking him. His technique is unbelievable. Every day he surprises us with something else that he's, in the room doing. Just works hard at the craft and loves the sport. So he has no problem getting after it every day.
In the classroom, Fishback brings that same get-after-it mentality. He has a 3.4 GPA and is known for doing things the right way.
At an early age, my parents kind of implied to me that they're really important. Like if you don't have good grades, you're not playing sports. So not only that, but I take pride in being the best I can be, and so I always just try to get good grades, and I think getting good grades is mostly effort, whether you're smart or not. Most of the time it's effort, so I always try to put in effort.
That effort has paid off for Dylan. Next year, he'll head off to North Carolina State, where he plans on studying business and psychology while wrestling for the Wolfpack.
The biggest thing there for me is their culture of the program, and just the school atmosphere in general. They're there to help you get better as a person in life. Obviously, wrestling is a big part of it, but the coaching staff and just the people there are preparing you for life after college, regardless if you're wrestling or not. They're really strict with academics, regardless of who you are. If you don't have a 3.0, you're not wrestling. And I like that about NC State too, is they care about you, not just with wrestling. They want you to be a great person.
At Aurora, there are a number of things that the Greenmen will miss once Fishback graduates, but his leadership is what stands out most.
If he sees a kid that maybe needs some help, he's the first one to jump in and help him out. So, in the room. So we're gonna miss that a lot.
Wrestling, I would say, definitely has taught me persistence and overcoming challenges, not just in the sport but outside of the sport. Just kind of when things get hard, to overcome that and battle through it, and eventually you'll get the outcome you want.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. And congratulations to Dylan Fishback from Aurora High School, making his journey towards repeating as a state champ. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday, 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests Mary Kay Cabot, Brown's beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That is Monday, 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday.